He wasn't the kind of man who complained. A quiet soul, 74 years old, retired Navy veteran, still doing yard work, still sharp with numbers, still making his own coffee every morning. But on that particular Tuesday, something didn't feel right. He collapsed in his bathroom, not from a heart attack, not from a stroke. His heart was beating just fine, but his blood wasn't moving. Paramedics said his circulation had failed, suddenly and without clear cause. But later, after weeks of quiet conversation and gentle questions, we discovered something surprising. It wasn't his heart, it wasn't his lungs. It was a private routine he'd followed for nearly 5 decades, something he never imagined could be hurting him, something no one ever warned him about. Not the act itself, but how he was doing it. The quiet habits behind closed doors that slowly, silently wear down the male body after 60. I know this might sound uncomfortable, maybe even inappropriate to talk about, but I've seen too many good men fall into patterns that quietly sabotage the very things they treasure most: health, energy, confidence, intimacy, and no one is telling them the truth. My name is Dr. Edward. For over 30 years, I've worked with thousands of older adults, men and women alike, helping them restore their energy, strengthen their bodies, and maintain mental clarity and resilience at every stage of later life. I've sat across from teachers, farmers, engineers, fathers, grandfathers, and quiet men who carried their stories alone for far too long. And one thing shows up again and again when it comes to health, especially men's health. The most dangerous problems are the ones we never talk about. That's why I'm here. In this message, I'm going to walk you through 4 private habits that seem harmless, comforting, even, but may be quietly destroying your circulation, weakening your sensitivity, and disconnecting you from the very part of life you were meant to enjoy. Even after 60, we'll talk honestly, no shame, no judgment. Just truth, physiology, and hope, because it's never too late to make a change. Before we dive into the first habit, I want to ask you something. Have you ever noticed that what used to feel effortless now feels different? Maybe less warmth, less drive, slower response. Maybe you've chalked it up to stress or just getting older. I don't know, but what if I told you that some of that decline, especially in blood flow, arousal, and energy, is not inevitable? That part of it may be caused by subtle habits you've never questioned. Let's begin. The first pattern I see over and over in my patients is this: the habit of rushing through moments of release. I just needed to take the edge off, they say. Didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But over time, that quick escape becomes routine. What once was an experience of connection, even if solitary, becomes mechanical, rushed, like ticking off a chore. And here's the problem. Your body after 60 doesn't process that intensity the way it used to. When you rush, your nervous system spikes, your heart races, blood surges suddenly into narrowed vessels. And unlike when you were 30, those vessels don't bounce back as quickly. Arterial walls are thinner now. Nitric oxide, the molecule that helps open your blood vessels, has declined. So instead of flowing smoothly, the blood hits resistance. It creates friction. It strains the fragile capillaries, especially in the pelvic region. You might not notice it at first, maybe just a subtle numbness, a slower recovery time, a little less sensation, but over time, that adds up. Those surges wear down the vascular system. They create what I call micro-panic in the circulatory system, a forced flood followed by collapse. And when that becomes a pattern, it doesn't just affect your private life, it affects your sleep, your clarity, your confidence. I've had patients tell me, I thought I was just tired. But what they were really feeling was vascular fatigue, a subtle breakdown in the body's ability to manage pressure and flow. And it all started with a habit they thought was harmless. The key is not to stop, it's to slow down, to be intentional, to breathe. Your nervous system doesn't want to sprint. It wants a stretch. It wants connection, not chaos. When you give yourself time, when you treat the moment as something worth honoring, your body responds, blood flows better, hormones stabilize, sensation returns. Let me put it this way. How you treat yourself in private echoes into how you feel in public. If you're rushing your body in moments meant for peace, don't be surprised if you feel restless in everyday life. Now here's where it gets even more subtle. Some men do try to slow down. But even as they reduce the rush, they unknowingly fall into the second trap, one that constricts blood flow from the inside out. And it begins with something as simple as forgetting to breathe. If what I've said so far is resonating with you, if you felt even a little of what I've described, stay with me. What comes next may be the part no one has ever told you, but that could change the way you experience health, connection, and vitality from this point forward. When I bring it up in my office, most men look at me surprised, not because they disagree, but because no one's ever asked them the question before. Were you holding your breath? I ask. And after a long pause, they nod, almost all of them. They had no idea. No one had ever connected the dots between something so simple, breathing, and something so personal like arousal, blood flow, or physical response. But the truth is, your breath is the bridge between your brain and your body. And when you unconsciously stop breathing, when your chest tightens, your belly contracts, your shoulders rise and the muscles around your pelvis grip like a fist, your entire nervous system slips into fight or flight. What should be a moment of calm turns into an internal storm. You may not feel it right away, but your blood vessels do. The pelvic floor, those deep, hard-to-feel muscles surrounding the base of the penis, are especially vulnerable to this kind of silent tension. They're not meant to clench during arousal. They're meant to soften, to receive, to allow blood to enter and stay. But when you grip them tight, even unconsciously, you strangle your own circulation from the inside out. It's like trying to water a plant while stepping on the hose. The harder you press, the less gets through. Many men have told me they don't even realize they're holding their breath. It's a reflex, something they've done for years. And maybe when they were younger, the body could handle that kind of tension. But after 60, that pressure becomes a poison, because every clench signals your brain, brace, not open, close, not connect. It's like running a marathon while locked in a suit of armor. I had a patient once, a soft-spoken retired high school principal, who described it better than any textbook could. He said, "Doc, it's like my body thinks it's under attack, even when I'm trying to relax." And he was right. That chronic pelvic tension wasn't just choking off his blood flow, it was teaching his body that pleasure was a threat. And over time, that conditioning dulled everything: desire, response, even his ability to feel warmth during real intimacy. What changed things for him wasn't medication. It wasn't testosterone. It was breath, deep, slow, rhythmic breathing paired with a soft belly and relaxed legs. Within weeks, he noticed the difference, not just in arousal, but in sleep, in mood, in how he carried himself. He said, "I feel like I'm letting go of something I didn't even know I was holding." That's the power of relaxation. It's not passive, it's deeply active. It's what allows blood to flow where it's needed most. It's what restores trust between your body and your brain. And it's what makes real intimacy possible. Not just physical, but emotional. But even if a man slows down, even if he remembers to breathe, there's another quiet habit that sneaks in, especially during retirement, a routine that starts off feeling innocent, even comforting, a way to pass the time, soothe loneliness, feel normal again, daily repetition, not just occasionally, every day, sometimes even multiple times. And the body, though resilient, wasn't designed for that kind of constant demand, especially not after 60 hours. One man, mid-60s, former contractor, proud grandfather, once told me, "Doc, I do it every morning. Like brushing my teeth, it helps me focus. But after a moment of silence, He looked down and whispered, "But I don't feel anything afterward. Nothing." And there it was again, that haunting numbness. Not physical pain, not dysfunction in the usual sense, just absence, the warmth, the spark, the sense of being connected to his own body. Gone. What he didn't realize, and what most men don't, is that the older male body needs recovery, time to replenish, time to rebuild nitric oxide, dopamine, testosterone, and when you stimulate the body day after day without pause, you're not giving it time to restore. You're draining its reserves. It's like drawing water from a well that's never refilled. Eventually, all you get is dry stone. This kind of overstimulation dulls more than a sensation. It exhausts the nerves, flattens emotion, blunts arousal. What once was a spark becomes a flicker. You may still go through the motions, but the meaning, the feeling, starts to fade. And that's when doubt creeps in. Is something wrong with me? Am I broken? No, you're not. You're overworked. Your body, like any living system, needs rhythm, stress and recovery, activity and rest. And when you ignore the second half of that equation, your body rebels, not with violence, but with silence. It goes quiet, and the longer that goes on, the harder it becomes to bring it back. But the good news? Recovery works faster than you think. I've seen men in their 70s reclaim desire, sensitivity, energy, or simply by spacing out their rhythm, giving their body a few days off, breathing deeper, moving their focus from repetition to presence. There's something else, though, something that complicates all of this. Because even when a man slows down, breathes deeply, and allows recovery, there's a fourth habit that can quietly undo all the progress. And this one doesn't start in the body, it starts in the mind. And if you're still reading this, if this message has stirred something real inside you, I encourage you to stay with me. Because what comes next may not be easy to hear, but it might be the single most important truth you've been missing. It's the conversation that most older men avoid. Not because they're ashamed, but because deep down, they know something has changed. Something they don't have the words for, something that doesn't make sense, how they can see, hear, and even respond to stimulation, and yet feel nothing, not truly, not like before. And when I sit with them, quiet, patient, present, they finally say it out loud. "Doc, I don't feel anything when I'm with my wife anymore. I feel numb. I used to be full of fire. Now it's just gone." That's when I ask the hardest question. Have you been watching porn? Sometimes there's a long silence. Sometimes a nervous laugh. Sometimes tears. Not out of guilt, but grief. Because what began as a harmless escape has now become a prison of disconnection. And here's what most men don't realize. Modern pornography is not the same as what you saw in the 1970s. It's faster, louder, more extreme. It's designed to hijack your brain, overstimulate your nervous system, and override your natural circuits of arousal. And the older you are, the more fragile those circuits become. The male brain was not made for a flood of novelty in 4K definition, available at the swipe of a screen, with no emotional context, no scent, no warmth, no real touch. It was made for closeness, for imagination, for rhythm. But when you feed it an artificial fire every day, it forgets how to respond to the natural light of real intimacy. Dopamine, the molecule of desire, gets hijacked. Receptors become numb. The brain starts demanding more just to feel less. And the real world, with its slow moments, subtle touches, and quiet connection, simply can't compete. And this is not just about arousal. It's about circulation, because the brain controls blood flow. The arousal center in your brain sends the signals that tell your blood vessels to open, your heart to adjust, your body to prepare. But when those signals are misfiring, confused, fatigued, or rewired by constant artificial input, circulation suffers. The blood doesn't move like it used to. The response is dull. The feedback loop weakens. Men tell me, I'm still breathing, I'm relaxed, I'm not rushing, but nothing's happening. And I ask them, gently, when's the last time you were intimate without needing a screen? For many, it's been years, and that's when the truth sinks in. They're not broken, they're conditioned by repetition, by loneliness, by a digital substitute that promises connection but delivers isolation. And every time that loop repeats, the body forgets a little more of what it means to feel real closeness. But this doesn't have to be the end of the story. The brain is resilient. It can change. It can relearn. Just like a muscle, it can recover from overstimulation if you give it the space, the rest, and the right kind of experience. That begins by stepping away, not in shame, but in strength. Strength to reclaim your attention, to rewire your reward system, to remember what it feels like to touch, to feel, to connect without distraction. One of my patients, a 70-year-old widower who had relied on online videos for nearly a decade, made the decision, not overnight, not perfectly, but steadily. He started with memory-based arousal, drawing on past moments with his late wife. He turned to music, scent, warm baths, sunlight on his skin. He even practiced stillness, just lying with his hand on his chest, listening to his breath, noticing what it felt like to simply be alive. And slowly, he began to feel again. His blood flow improved, his sleep deepened, his morning erections returned, unpredictably at first, then with increasing steadiness. But more importantly, his sense of self returned. He told me, "For years, I felt like a ghost. Now, I feel like a man again." That is what this is about. Not morality, not judgment, but the return of aliveness, of connection, of blood that moves freely, not just in your body, but through your spirit. And if you've made it this far in the message, I want to tell you something directly. You are not too old. You are not too far gone. You are not alone. Your nervous system may have been hijacked. Your circulation may have slowed. Your desire may have faded. But all of that can be restored if you act now. I've seen men in their 60s, 70s, and even early 80s turn their health around. Not with pills, not with surgeries, but with awareness, with simple shifts in behavior, with the courage to change what wasn't working and the wisdom to give their body what it truly needed. In just a moment, I'll walk you through those exact steps, what it means to begin again, how to retrain your body to respond naturally, how to rebuild the bridge between your mind, your blood flow, and your sense of intimacy. But for now, I want you to sit with this one truth. The habits you've built are not your destiny. They can be unlearned, replaced, redeemed. And when they are, something amazing begins to happen. You feel again. You respond again. You trust again. Not just others, but your own body. If you're ready, I'll show you how to take that first step. Let's begin again, not with fear, not with guilt, but with a quiet choice, a choice to listen to your body in a way perhaps you never have before. A choice to slow down, not because you're weak, but because you finally understand that true strength is found in attention, in presence, in honoring the flow of life rather than forcing it. Here's what I tell every man who walks into my office asking how to feel like himself again. Start simple, start small, start real. The next time you're alone and feel the need for release, I invite you to pause. Don't rush. Don't go through the old script. Just pause. Sit with your breath for a moment. Feel your chest rise and fall. Place a hand on your belly. Let it soften. Let your breath move there. This is your nervous system recalibrating. This is your circulation opening. Then, if you choose to proceed, do so slowly. Be intentional. Let your body guide the pace, not your mind's expectations. Keep your breath deep, steady, relax your jaw, soften your thighs, unclench your pelvic floor. Let it be less about climax and more about connection, less about escape and more about presence. If you've been repeating the same rhythm daily, give yourself space, a day, then 2, Then 3, watch what happens when the body's allowed to miss something again. When arousal becomes a slow-building fire instead of a flickering match, and if you've been leaning on screens, I ask you gently, step back. Try memory instead. Try touch. Try silence. Try your own heartbeat. It might feel foreign at first, but your body remembers. It wants to feel again. It wants to come back to life. It just needs a little help finding its way. And in that process, something else begins to heal. Your trust, not just in intimacy, but in your own ability to change, to recover, to grow, no matter your age, no matter how long you felt numb, no matter how many times you've told yourself, this is just how it is now. It doesn't have to be. You were not designed to fade. You were built to adapt, to evolve, to learn, even at 60, 70, 80, and beyond. And the moment you choose to treat your private life with care, with awareness, with reverence, your public life begins to shine brighter. 2, you feel it in how you walk, in how you speak, in how you look at your partner, or your reflection, or the sunlight coming through the morning window. This is the new chapter, not a return to who you were, but an arrival into who you were always meant to be, a man who knows his worth, who understands the rhythm of rest and renewal, who doesn't need to prove anything, but finally feels everything. If this message has resonated with you, don't let it slip away. Write it down, save it, share it, reflect on it the next time your body whispers for attention. Ask yourself not, what do I want right now? But, what does my body truly need? The answer may surprise you, and if no one else has told you today, let me be the first. You are not alone, you are not broken, and you are worth taking care of. Your circulation, your energy, your intimacy, it can all return, but it begins with you. Not next year, not when things get worse. Today, if you're ready to start that journey, subscribe and stay with me, because I'll be sharing more tools, more truths, and more quiet breakthroughs just like this, for men who still believe that life after 60 isn't a slow decline, but a deeper awakening. You've made it this far. That says something powerful about you. You still care. You still feel. You still hope. So let's take that hope, and turn it into healing. You're not done. You're just getting started. Stay curious, stay aware, and most of all, stay alive.